Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's start with the today's analysis video for 13th of May 2023. So very positive news, and we can see that this is one of the achievements जब हम बात करते हैं कि inflation, it has now started slowing down and it was recorded at 18-month low of 4.7%. So जो upper tolerance limit है वो 6% है and exact inflation target is of 4%. So reading it stays below the 6% tolerance threshold for the price rise, and it hit a high of 7.8% last April. So last April में 2022 में highest inflation record की गई थी 7.8%, and prices of pulses, cereals, milk, they remain a concern. And as we talk about कि it like this year might be El Nino year, तो उसकी वजह से food inflation might go up. So that's one concern. And जो crude oil से related decision लिया गया था of production cut, the crude oil prices might also go up. So main factors which are causing inflation is the supply side factors. So this is also like pointing towards कि आने वाले time में repo rate की hike और करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. So annual retail inflation eased to 18-month low 4.7% in April from 5.6% the previous month. And decline was mainly due to cooling of the food prices. So अभी भी main reason अगर आप समझोगे कि why we are recording or why we are seeing a slowdown in the inflation is because the food prices हैं they are becoming less volatile and they are also cooling down. तो main reason जो हमें यहाँ पे समझ में आया है कि supply side factors अगर हम उनको control कर सकते हैं, if we are taking measures to deal with the supply side shocks, तो inflation would come down. And we have discussed कि tight monetary policy and increasing the repo rate, it is a demand side thing and वो supply side factor को deal नहीं कर सकता है. एंड ये चीज हमने बहुत क्लियरली डिस्कस करी है प्रॉपरली इन डिटेल बिफोर. इसके अलावा आपको सीपीआई के बारे में और थोड़ा पता होना चाहिए, कौन सा बेस ईयर हम यूज करते हैं, कौन पब्लिश करता है सीपीआई को. सो दैट इज इम्पोर्टेंट. Then talking about the Hindenburg case, so Supreme Court, it may give 3 months to SEBI to finish the probe regarding this. So timeline has been decided and Supreme Court says कि we will go through Justice Sapare's report and come back on Monday and we'll pronounce further orders on Monday. So Monday को देखते हैं और क्या developments रहेंगे regarding this. So Supreme Court said कि it will use the weekend to pore over the report which was submitted by an expert committee which was led by its former judge Justice Abhay Manohar Sapre. So that was regarding the Hindenburg Foundations. उन्होंने allegations लगाए थे on the Adani group of companies regarding the manipulation of the share prices and fraud against the Adani group before taking a call on a request by the SEBI to grant it a minimum of 6 months to complete its investigation. So पहले time period 6 months था and now it is like being said कि it might be reduced to 3 months. So Supreme Court may give 3 months to SEBI to finish this probe. So Supreme Court question West Bengal में जो ban लगाया गया है in Tamil Nadu alert on the Kerala story. So that's a movie. And इससे regarding Supreme Court ने बोला है कि basically Supreme Court ने challenge किया है West Bengal government को justify जो उनका decision है regarding banning the screening of this movie, asking why it thought itself any different from other demographically similar states जो हैं across the country which are showing this controversial film. तो justification मांगी गई है from the state of West Bengal कि उनको ऐसा क्यों लगता है कि demographically they are different from other states in India. And then they have also accused Tamil Nadu government of orchestrating a de facto ban on the release of the film by issuing a state of red alert. So court on Friday asked the Tamil Nadu to list the steps taken to maintain law and order. So ये Tamil Nadu government से पूछा गया है कि आपने क्या steps लिए हैं so as to maintain law and order in the state. So as per a minister of the state of Bihar, he says कि बिहार may pass a law to complete the caste survey. So Supreme Court ने clearly बोला था कि state की power में नहीं है, it is not within their jurisdiction to carry out a caste survey, and उन्होंने immediately उसको stop करने के लिए orders दिए थे. But minister का कहना यह है कि एक law pass किया जा सकता है so as to complete this caste survey, and उससे मतलब उसके अलावा जो बाकी कंसर्न्स थे कि जो ऑलरेडी डेटा कलेक्ट किया जा चुका है, डेटा सिक्योरिटी मेंटेन करना इज very important thing. So in the interim stay order, Patna High Court asked why no law had been passed before it was true that all the parties they were united on conducting that survey. So this was also raised by the High Court of Bihar. Coming to the editorial page now, so here so first article, it is talking about welfare spending. So different tarike se how it has been reshaping. So different schemes are also mentioned here. So they like all of them are very important. Then HDI rank, we are like not progressing ahead. And then there are like marginal healthcare gains. So let's start with this article. It's going to be important for us to understand how things they are changing and what has been the trend of government's welfare spending regarding different schemes. So this year's union budget, it was criticized by the experts over the decline in the allocations for the welfare schemes in real terms at the time of post-COVID-19 recovery. जब मतलब ज़्यादा spending ज़्यादा important रही, but गवर्नमेंट वाज अगेन क्रिटिसाइज्ड कि रियल टर्म्स में जो वेलफेयर स्पेंडिंग के लिए जो एलोकेशंस किए गए हैं दे हैव बीन रिड्यूस्ड इन रियल टर्म्स. सो रिकवरी वाले टाइम पीरियड में स्पेंडिंग उल्टा होना चाहिए था, मतलब स्पेंडिंग ज्यादा होनी चाहिए थी. सिमिलरली लास्ट ईयर के बजट में टू इट लाइक इग्नोर द सोशल स्पेंडिंग इन फेवर ऑफ द कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. सो सोशल स्पेंडिंग पे तो ज्यादा फोकस ना करते हुए कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर पे ज्यादा फोकस किया जा रहा है. सो जो भी सारा डेटा इस आर्टिकल में दिया हुआ है that is based on budget papers which shows that the trend of declining central government spending on the critical social schemes, it is not new, and having begun जब NDA government it came to power in 2014, so तब से ये trend देखा जा रहा है कि जो social welfare spending है that has been on declining trend. So Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0, it aims to address child malnutrition and hunger. And 2021-22 से अगर हम देखें तो आंगनवाड़ी program, which is ICDS also, it is also known as ICDS, it was merged with Poshan Abhiyan and a nutrition scheme for the adults and girls. So even with like more components, its allocations, it went down from 0.13% of GDP to 0.07%, which is almost half of what it was earlier. And despite मतलब इतनी सारी schemes को merge करने के बाद भी we are seeing कि जो allocations की गई they have been reduced. Then going by the data of the National Family Health Survey 5, percentage of anemic, underweight and stunted children in India, it is 67%, 32%, 36% respectively, which is among the worst in the world. So ये data बहुत important है when we talk about anemia, underweight and stunted children in India. So anemia का अगर हम level की बात करें तो there it is like to the tune of 67%. And underweight 32%, stunted children are 36%. And this is one of the worst situation in the world. So yet funds meant to address malnutrition, they are being slashed with abandon. तो मतलब ये प्रॉब्लम इतने बड़े स्केल पे होने के बावजूद भी इसको इतना ज्यादा we can say कि attention नहीं दिया जा रहा है in terms of funds also and otherwise as well. And then another important nutrition scheme is the midday meal scheme, covering almost like 12 crore children. So evidence shows this scheme, it has led to an improvement in class attendance, learning as well as the nutritional outcomes also, and reduce the stunting in children. So because of the midday meal scheme बहुत सारी हमने प्रोग्रेस भी देखी है. However, जो budget allocation for the scheme जो रहा, that is decreased by 50% as a share of GDP from like 0.08% it was in 2014-15, and right now it is at 0.04% in 2023-24. So almost there is a decrease of 50% in the budget allocation for the midday meal scheme. And apart from this, then there is like Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, which provides maternity benefits as a conditional cash transfer of rupees 5,000 to the woman in the unorganized sector. So to cover all the women and births as per the National Food Security Act mandates, the scheme needs around rupees 14,000 crores, but जो budget है scheme का, that is like it is yet to cross rupees 3,000 crores. So you can see कि कितना ज़्यादा gap है. Then we talk about the working class distress worsens. So here MG नरेगा scheme की बात करें या फूड सब्सिडी स्कीम की बात करें, इट हैव आल्सो डिक्लाइंड एज अ शेयर ऑफ जीडीपी सिंस 2014. मतलब यहाँ पे सारी यही बात की गई है कि डिफरेंट डिफरेंट स्कीम्स की एंड हाउ देयर शेयर हैज डिक्लाइंड. देन मार्जिनल हेल्थ केयर गेन्स में बात करें तो हेल्थ केयर एक्सपेंडिचर अनलाइक अदर्स इट हैज रोज अंडर द एनडीए गवर्नमेंट. सो शेयर ऑफ सेंट्रल हेल्थ एक्सपेंडिचर इन जीडीपी इट वेंट अप फ्रॉम 0.25% 2014-15 में. इट वाज 0.25% ऑफ द जीडीपी. यहाँ पे हम सेंट्रल हेल्थ केयर एक्सपेंडिचर की बात कर रहे हैं एंड देन इट इंक्रीज टू 0.3% दिस ईयर. सो मार्जिनल इंक्रीज ही हुआ है बट इंक्रीज हुआ, ये पता होना चाहिए. So you can note down these figures also. And while like this is a welcome challenge change, it's too little too late in a post-COVID world. So बहुत ही छोटा है and it's too late also. So we need to like push more at this front. And according to the latest State of the World's Children report by UNICEF also, India, it has the lowest vaccination rates in South Asia. Furthermore, जो हम out of pocket expenditure on health की बात करते हैं, that also remains much higher than the global average, and that is also pushing millions of people into poverty each year. देन अगर हम हमारी HDI रैंक की बात करें, ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स, तो वहाँ पे भी जो हमारी पोजीशन है दैट्स स्टैग्नेंट. ना हम ज्यादा इंप्रूव कर रहे हैं ना लाइक हमें ज्यादा फॉल देखने को मिल रहा है. सो इट्स ओनली फेयर टू एक्सपेक्ट कि दैट इज द कंट्रीज जीडीपी इट इज ग्रोइंग. एक्सपेंडिचर जो वेलफेयर प्रोग्राम्स पे है दैट शुड ऑल्सो ग्रो प्रपोर्शनेटली. अगर हमारी जीडीपी इंक्रीज हो रही है तो जो एक्सपेंडिचर होना चाहिए फॉर द वेलफेयर प्रोग्राम्स वो भी proportionately इंक्रीज होना चाहिए. In fact, if we go by the international experiences also, so the share of social expenditure in GDP, it should be rising over time in India as well. So vital importance of the social security program that was acknowledged by the government when it raised the budget allocation for all the aforementioned schemes during the pandemic year to 4.3% of the GDP. So यहाँ पे social security programs की बात की जा रही है. So that is to the tune of जो expenditure किया जाता है around 4.3% of the GDP, but we are now back to just 1.5%. So 4.3% था during the COVID-19 years, and now we are again to 1.5%. And according to the World Social Protection Report, which is published by ILO, that is International Labour Organization. So it's an important fact. World Social Protection Report by ILO. Only 24% of the Indians, they are covered by at least one social security scheme. Against Asia Pacific averages, 44% of the people they are covered. So India mein, again, social security cover pe we need to work more. And it results like it can be seen clearly seen in our stagnant human development index rank of 132 and rising malnutrition levels also. So it's difficult for India to be a superpower with an uneducated and unhealthy population. So if fiscal prudence, that is a worry, we suggest the government recover the rupees 4.3 lakh crores of revenue, which was foregone due to the tax concessions during the NDA one. And then another figure is also mentioned after lowering the corporate tax rates 2019 में जो we can say revenue that was foregone in a way. So we need to like work more on recovering that, but इसके अलावा और भी अच्छे solutions हो सकते हैं. तो यहाँ पे हमने बात करी कि किन एरियाज में प्रॉब्लम है, कहाँ पे वी आर स्पेंडिंग लेस, कहाँ पे हमारी लाइक वी आर फोकसिंग ऑल्सो लेस, एंड वेयर वी नीड टू वर्क मोर. ये सारी चीजें हमने गोइंग बाय द डेटा बाय द ऑफिशियल स्टैटिस्टिक्स वी ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस थिंग एंड मूविंग फॉरवर्ड. So Supreme Court tells the courts not to rely on April 26 order on default bail. So top court says कि जो default bail pleas and they can be decided independent of the Ritu Chhabria judgment, which upheld कि it is a fundamental right of the accused persons when we talk about right to default bail. So center is yet to file the review petition on this, and Supreme Court ने बोला है कि जो बाकी cases है regarding the default bail pleas, they can be decided independent जो भी judgment रही in the Ritu Chhabria judgment case. And interim order on May 1 shall not preclude any court from considering a plea for grant of the default bail independent of and without relying on the judgment. The Supreme Court, in a rather unusual order which was issued, directed the lower courts to decide the pending default bail applications without relying on its judgment of April 26. So जो भी judgment रहती है Supreme Court की, it is considered as law of the land, and obviously then जो भी बाकी courts है इंडिया में, they need to follow that particular judgment. But यहाँ पे Supreme Court बोल रहा है कि जो आप decisions लोगे regarding the default bail pleas, they can be independent of जो भी Supreme Court की judgment रही in the Ritu Chhabria judgment. All right. So here Article 141 of the Constitution provides that the law declared by the Supreme Court shall be binding on all the courts within India. So it is binding. All right. So jo judgment rahi in the Ritu Chhabria versus Union of India held that the central agencies, they cannot deny the accused persons their right to default bail by filing multiple supplementary charge sheets and seeking renewed custody. So this was the judgment, and again it upheld that the right of default bail under section 167 clause 2 of the CRPC is not merely a statutory right, but it is also a fundamental right that flows from Article 21. So it is a derived fundamental right from Article 21, and this was the judgment. So here this circular ये Supreme Court ने issue किया गया है. I hope this is clear. So Prime Minister says that welfare without discrimination is true secularism. Now, obviously, it can be interpreted in several ways, and he also inaugurated, laid down the foundation stones for the projects worth rupees 4,400 crores. So he said that his government did not look at the religion or caste of beneficiaries while reaching out to them with the schemes and the welfare programs, and there was no greater social justice than working for the happiness and convenience of the masses. Then he also lauds the new education policy that would change the way education was imparted in the country. He said the introduction of the new education policies and the bookish knowledge would give way to creative and innovative ways of learning and teaching. So जब हम prison reforms की बात करते हैं, तो here we are seeing कि center it has prepared a new model prisons act जिसमें focus किया जा रहा है on the prison reforms as well. So Ministry of Home Affairs, it has prepared the Model Prisons Act of 2023 that will replace the British era law to overhaul the prison administration, which will focus on the reformation and rehabilitation of the inmates. And recently आपने incident भी देखा होगा कि a person who was inside the jail and how he was murdered, and then again police का कोई ऐसा interference हमें नहीं देखने को मिला. There were videos that were circulating on social media. So given all these types of situation and incidences, definitely it raises questions even regarding the security of the inmates who are there inside the prisons. So reformation and rehabilitation would be the focus going ahead as far as prison reforms is concerned. Among the salient features of the act, they are the provisions of the punishment for the prisoners and jail staff for use of prohibited items like mobile phones भी मिलते हैं अंदर से जो gangs हैं, they are easily operating because उनके पास mobile phones का access है inside the prisons. So अगर ऐसी कोई चीजें मिलती है which are prohibited items inside the prisons, then prisoners को भी punishment होगी and jail staff को भी punishment होगी. Then there's like establishment and management of high security jails, open jail, and provisions for protecting the society from the criminal activities of the hardened criminals and habitual offenders. So it also contains provisions for providing the legal aid to the prisoners, parole, furlough, and premature release to incentivize the good conduct. So यहाँ पे आपको difference पता होना चाहिए between parole and furlough. What is the difference between them? So abhi right now jo act hai, it is almost 130 years old act. As I said in the beginning, it's a British era act and still hum usi ko follow kar rahe hain. So it's very, very important ki we come up with a new act and with proper reforms at relevant places. So prisons in the country and persons which are detained therein, they are state subject, and existing law in this context is the Prison Act of 1894. It's like pre-independence era act and it's almost 130 years old. So two other related laws that includes the Prisoners Act of 1900 and the Transfer Prisons Act of 1950. They are also decades old. And जो Model Prisons Act होने वाला है, the minister said that it might serve as a guiding document for the states and for the adoption in their jurisdiction. So cyclone Mocha, it's going to be severe but little threat to India. So its effects are likely to be focused in Myanmar and parts of Bangladesh, as per the IMD forecast. So इसके बारे में हम पहले बात कर चुके हैं कि there are different categories of cyclones, and which is also like mentioned over here. So you can just go through the different categories, and they're categorized on the basis of wind speed. So that is also mentioned. And इसके अलावा like what are the preconditions जो important रहती है when it comes to cyclone formation. So those are the important focus areas for us. So kharif season की बात करें तो area under the paddy coverage it dips by around 1.91 lakh hectares. So sowing of paddy it picked up in states other than Punjab and Haryana. So Punjab and Haryana में इतनी growth नहीं देखने को मिली. And there was a decrease of around 1.91 lakh hectares compared to the compared to the area of coverage last year. And we are seeing that there is marginal increase when we talk about cultivation of millets in this Kharif season. And when we talk about the pulses, the sowing, it was about 19.61 lakh hectares, and Madhya Pradesh led the chart by sowing the pulses in 9.6 lakh hectares of area. So Madhya Pradesh is a leader when we're talking about the pulses cultivation, and millets mein there's a marginal increase. Paddy cultivation mein we are seeing a drop. So lack of committees against the sexual harassment is disquieting, says the Supreme Court. So जो internal complaints committee है as per the Sexual Harassment Act 2013. So it is important, it's mandatory to form such types of committees. But we are seeing कि बहुत सारी ऐसे sports federation है जहाँ पे internal complaints committee they are not there. So Supreme Court in a judgment said कि there are serious lapses and uncertainty in the implementation of the Protection of Women from Sexual Harassment Act, leaving many working women no choice but to leave their job. So obviously ultimately उनके पास कोई और option नहीं बचता है other than leaving the job. So it said it called it to be the sorry state of affairs concerning the anti-sexual harassment of the workplace law. Even after a decade of its introduction, we are seeing it has not been implemented effectively. So it not only dents the self-esteem of women, it also takes a toll on her emotional, mental, and physical health also. It's often seen that when women they face sexual harassment at the workplace, they are reluctant to report such misconduct. Many of them, they even drop out from their jobs. Coming to the world page, so here let's see what are the updates. So fears fighting it renews in Gaza as truce. Their hopes fade. So fears fighting it re-begins, and violence has been met with international calls for de-escalation, with the European Union pushing for an immediate comprehensive ceasefire. But abhi situation is really volatile when we talk about Israel-Palestine issue and different attacks on both the sides. Now on the business page, manufacturing electricity output, it drags the IIP growth to a 5-month low. So manufacturing activity and electricity area में we are seeing a significant fall, जिसकी वजह से index of industrial production में भी हमें growth नहीं देखने को मिली, and it was recorded at 5-month lowest level. So industrial production expanded 1.1% in March, breaking sharply from the February's 5.8% pace. As power, consumer durables, non-durables, they posted year-on-year contractions. So index of industrial production, it is like definitely it is not showing any positive signal to us as of now. So momentum is getting weakened. And apart from this, so that's a like update कि जब हम production की बात करें या output की बात करें तो इसमें growth is slowing down. That's going to be a concern going forward कि आने वाले time में are we heading towards a slowdown or not. So aviation leasing watchdog जो है, it puts India on the watch list for NCLT's go first order. So इसके context में हम पहले आइडेरा के बारे में डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. यहाँ पे भी अगेन CTC ये भी हम पहले मेंशन कर चुके हैं. Cape Town Convention, and India is a signatory to this. When an insolvency it is initiated, so insolvency administrator or debtor has to give possession of the aircraft to the lessor within 60 days. So this is according to this convention, and जो भी aircrafts आपने lease पे ले रखे हैं, तो जो भी insolvency administrator है या debtor है, आपको within 60 days aircraft वापस return करना is important. And at least 3 lessors, they have moved appeals against the NCLT order also. So basically NCLT order, it prevented NCLT order preventing the recovery of the aircraft by the lessors has raised significant concerns among the aviation industry lessors and creditors regarding the risk which are associated with the aircraft leasing in India. So obviously aane wale time mein now they would be skeptical of taking the decision of giving an aircraft on lease to an Indian airline, क्योंकि अभी they are facing challenges when it comes to getting back their leased aircrafts. So इसकी वजह से जो global aviation leasing watchdog है, they have placed India on a watch list, assigning it a negative outlook following NCLT's order barring the bankrupt Gophers lessors from repossessing the planes while the airline it is under the insolvency process. So NCLT ने order यही दिया है, जो lessors हैं उनको अभी बार किया है from repossessing their aircrafts. So that is the concern. And यहाँ पे you can find out about IDERA as well, but यहाँ पे it is not mentioned, so you can just Google and find out about it. Otherwise हम इसको पहले एक बार बात कर चुके हैं, if you know about that, so that's really good, and we'll move forward. So RBI, it tells the banks to shift wholly from LIBOR by July. So what is LIBOR? ये समझना important है. It stands for the London Interbank Offered Rate. So RBI ने advise किया है to the banks and other RBI regulated entities, asking them to ensure that there is complete transition away from LIBOR, and they have been advised to ensure that no new transaction undertaken by them and their customers rely on, or like they shouldn't be priced using the US dollar LIBOR or the Mumbai Interbank Forward Outright Rate. So 2021 May, Financial Conduct Authority UK had said that all LIBOR settings would either cease to be provided by any administrator or no longer be representative. So basically, बाकी countries ने भी similar steps लिए हैं. So that's why even we are moving away from LIBOR right now. And by July, this is the deadline. This is what RBI has told the banks that there should be complete transition by then. The risk of US default adds to slowing global economies woes. So ये हमने कल डिटेल में बात करी थी कि US default अगर होता है तो this is going to be the first time in the history, and there is a debt ceiling कि कितना US गवर्नमेंट बोरो कर सकती है, तो उसकी भी सीलिंग है. तो अगर वो सीलिंग हिट हो गई तो उसके बाद आप और बोरो नहीं कर पाओगे, एंड जो आपको बेसिकली मतलब रिटर्न्स करने हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंटरेस्ट रेट्स एंड योर प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट, तो वो नहीं कर पाएंगे यूएसए, एंड वहां पे फिर डिफॉल्ट हो जाएगा. तो इसकी वजह से ऑब्वियसली ग्लोबली भी रेपरकशंस होंगे. सो वो एक रिस्की सिचुएशन हो सकती है फॉर द फाइनेंशियल मार्केट स्टेबिलिटी globally. So G7 finance officials meeting in Japan discussed the very high importance of raising the US debt limit and averting the negative repercussions of a potential default on US government debt for the first time ever. So यहाँ पे solution की अगर हम बात करें, अगर US उस debt ceiling को hit करता है तो या तो आप जो डेट सीलिंग अभी है उसको completely रिमूव कर दो या डेट सीलिंग को थोड़ा और इंक्रीज कर दो ताकि थोड़ा और गैप बना रहे. So this was discussed at G7 in the like Japan meeting. So it's a negative for everyone, definitely negative. इसके repercussions होने वाले हैं. कल हमने इसको बात किया. So debt restructuring is the key. So it was said it's frustrating to see the slow progress on the overall debt restructuring, noting how difficult it was for the countries to attract the investment until they had agreements in place to make their debt more sustainable. So यहाँ पे green washing, the term is mentioned. So इसका meaning बताना important है. So RBI is going to join 12 other regulators to tackle green washing risk. So it will join 12 international regulators in the global financial innovation networks, first ever greenwashing tech sprint, to develop a tool to help the regulators and the market effectively tackle the risk of greenwashing in the financial services. Central Bank noted that the number of investment products marketed as green was growing, and exaggerated, misleading, or unsubstantiated claims about environmental, social, and governance credentials, they damage the confidence in the products, and RBI wants to ensure that consumers or जो firms हैं, they can trust the products, they have the sustainability characteristics which they claim. So that's what is the meaning also कि आप in a way जैसे mind wash word होता है तो यहाँ पे green wash है कि consumers का माइंड वॉश आप कर रहे हो इन अ वे बाय सेइंग कि आपने ये मेजर्स लिए हैं व्हिच फॉल्स अंडर दिस ESG कैटेगरी, बट एक्चुअली में दैट इज नॉट ट्रू. तो उसको हम बोल रहे हैं ग्रीन वॉशिंग. Coming to Financial Express, so यहाँ पे भी inflation का you can see at 18 months low of 4.7%, but index of industrial production slows to 1.1%. So here data is given in the form of graphs. So this is for the inflation CPI दे रखा है, CPI core and CPI food inflation. So food inflation lowest पे है, but we are seeing कि सब में ही downfall हमें देखने को मिल रहा है. सबसे ज्यादा CPI food inflation में हमें fall देखने को मिल रहा है. वही main reason है कि we are seeing कि even CPI it is seeing a downfall. And index of industrial production का अगर हम trend समझे तो you can just have a look here. This is the graph which is talking about it. So it is, you can see कि October में it was at negative, then we started recovering and कुछ like फिर हम like stable हो गए growth में, and right now March में तो it was at 1.1%, तो काफी ज्यादा fall देखने को मिल रहा है when we talk about the production level. So RBI governor says कि headline inflation जो है it is cooling off to 4.7% during April is very satisfying. So it gives me and my colleagues in the RBI a good amount of confidence कि monetary policy is on the right track. But is it the reality कि क्या monetary policy की वजह से inflation कम हो रही है? No, the thing is supply side factors और ज्यादा जो challenges थे वो कम हो गए, या जो सप्लाई था वो इंक्रीज हो गया, उसकी वजह से वी आर सीइंग कि फूड इन्फ्लेशन कम हुई है, एंड दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई सीपीआई इज आल्सो कूलिंग डाउन. एंड इसके अलावा this we have talked about the Adani fraud and the Hindenburg group जिन्होंने allegations लगाए. So bond yields, they are below 7% and markets they rally. So this is, you can see how Sensex it performed. Rupee versus dollar, right now it is at 82.17 rupees against $1. Brent crude ke prices, they're again like moving upwards. We saw a increase. And then 10-year jo government bond yields hain, you can see how sharp is the fall. This is like intraday ka सारा chart है, मतलब single day में जो changes हुए, these are the graphs for that. So it is for 12th of May. तो जो मार्च का डेटा है रिगार्डिंग द आईआईपी, इट इज एट ऑड्स विद द हाई फ्रीक्वेंसी इंडिकेटर्स फॉर द मंथ इंक्लूडिंग पीएमआई डेटा एंड अप्रैल जीएसटी कलेक्शंस. सो जो आईआईपी है दैट इज लाइक not similar to, yeah, it is not on the same track as we find out about the PMI data या April GST collections, क्योंकि वहां पे हमें काफी अच्छी growth indications मिल रहे हैं, but IIP में it is not that case. So even when we're talking about the inflation dip, so high base effect is a significant contributor कि पहले we were seeing कि inflation इतने higher level पे चल रहा था and it was a problem, it was a very big challenge. उसकी वजह से we were following the tight monetary policy. But अगर अब हमें छोटा सा भी dip देखने को मिलेगा ना in inflation, so that would appear to be a very huge, a very big dip in inflation. So this is what we mean by the high base effect. एंड लो बेस इफेक्ट भी यही होता है कि अगर फिगर्स या ग्रोथ रेट बहुत लोअर लेवल पे चल रहा है एंड किसी एक टाइम पीरियड में वी आर सीइंग कि छोटा सा भी इंक्रीज हो गया इन द ग्रोथ, तो इट वुड अपियर कि बहुत बड़ा इंक्रीज हो गया ग्रोथ में, तो दैट इज लो बेस इफेक्ट. ओके, एंड ज्यादा इसको यूज किया जाता है इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन ओनली. तो यहाँ पे वी आर सेइंग कि इन्फ्लेशन में जो हमें डिप देखने को मिला, इट इज मेजरली बिकॉज ऑफ हाई बेस इफेक्ट. So making RBI fit for the future, periodic review of the central bank's objectives, they are needed to keep it in tune with the economic context of the day. So periodic reviews किए जाने चाहिए जो भी central bank के objectives है from time to time, so as to ensure कि that remains in tune with our economic context of the day. So they like both needs to be on the same page, तभी उस चीज का फायदा होगा. And should regulating the banknotes even be a core objective of the central bank in the era of digitalization or not is the question. Okay, so what should be the objective of central banks? This is a question that never goes out of discussion. So moreover, अगर हम बात करें last 15 years में, we have seen multiple crises leading to changes in the consensus over central bank के क्या objectives होने चाहिए. So अगर हम बात करें 2008 की global financial crisis, the consensus was कि price stability should be the goal and inflation targeting the framework to achieve this. So inflation targeting, price stability, ये major focus होना चाहिए. This was the consensus after 2008 global financial crisis. So 2008 global financial crisis, it shifted the consensus towards including financial stability with price stability as the key objectives for RBI. And uske baad se the recovery in most developed economies, that was very weak. So discussion shifted towards ki employment भी part होना चाहिए, उस पर भी हमें focus करना important है. Then growth of the central bank, मतलब GDP growth and employment भी focus areas होनी चाहिए for central bank. पर जब एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड ग्रोथ, चलो ग्रोथ तो फिर भी ठीक है, बट एम्प्लॉयमेंट सेंट्रल बैंक का फोकस होगा तो इट वुड बी लाइक फिर गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगी. तो आरबीआई ऑफ sorry, not RBI, Reserve Bank of New Zealand, which is the pioneer of inflation targeting, included employment generation in its list of objectives. And as inflation, it remained lower than the target. So central banks, they made policies to push the inflation up. So मतलब मिक्स तरीके से चीजें की गई. पहले हम बात कर रहे थे कि प्राइस स्टेबिलिटी पे फोकस करेंगे, इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग पे फोकस करेंगे, बट उसके बाद हमने देखा कि डेवलप्ड इकोनॉमीज में जो रिकवरी रही, जो ग्रोथ रही, वो बहुत वीक थी. तो हमने ये बोला कि हमारा फोकस एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड ग्रोथ पे भी होना चाहिए अपार्ट फ्रॉम प्राइस स्टेबिलिटी. देन जो रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड था, उन्होंने मतलब दे वर द पायनियर व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटेड. तो उन्होंने भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन को अपना वन ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्टिव्स बना लिया. एंड कुछ ऐसे सेंट्रल बैंक्स थे जहाँ पे जब हमने देखा कि इन्फ्लेशन कम हो रही है तो उनका ऑब्जेक्टिव बन गया कि दे वुड बी पुशिंग अप फॉर कि इन्फ्लेशन आगे इंक्रीज हो, क्योंकि बहुत लोअर लेवल पे भी इन्फ्लेशन ज्यादा बेनिफिशियल नहीं होती है इकोनॉमी के लिए. तो दैट्स हाउ थिंग्स दे चेंज्ड. एंड पैंडेमिक एंड रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर की बात करें तो डेफिनेटली इन्फ्लेशन बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज रहा है. एंड वी आर सीइंग कि ऐसे इतने हायर लेवल पे इन्फ्लेशन चली गई बिकॉज ऑफ दीज टू रीजंस, जो हमने लास्ट 40 to 50 years में नहीं देखे थे. सो सेंट्रल बैंक्स वंस अगेन दे टर्न्ड टू प्राइस स्टेबिलिटी. सो अगेन फोकस हमारा शिफ्ट हो गया टुवर्ड्स प्राइस स्टेबिलिटी एंड इंक्रीजिंग द पॉलिसी रेट्स अग्रेसिवली. So high policy rates in turn it led to the bank crisis in the USA. So ये एक उसका consequence रहा and landing that country in a situation जहाँ पे bank और financial stability comes under a cloud right now. क्योंकि अभी तक 3 banks USA में fail हो चुके हैं, तो financial stability is a very big question mark right now there. And central banks, they are back to where they started 15 years ago. So again, उसी सिचुएशन में आज के टाइम में बैंक्स दे आर seeing themselves. So in fact, problems for the central banks are not just limited to changing the macroeconomic and the financial conditions, but climate change, it has become a major public policy challenge as well. And central banks, they are being like public institutions, so they have to contribute towards this challenge as well. So how can central banks adjust to these constant challenges? मतलब challenges emerge हो रहे हैं, चीजें different तरीके से shape हो रही हैं in different countries. तो central banks इन सब से एक साथ कैसे adjust करे, वो खुद में बहुत बड़ा challenge है. So one way is to have periodic reviews किए जा सकते हैं. central bank के जो भी operations हैं, क्या उनके objective हैं, short term objectives होने चाहिए, long term objectives होने चाहिए, and क्या जो बाकी हमारे टारगेट्स हैं या जो हमारा बाकी ऑब्जेक्टिव है या जो बाकी इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन है, क्या उसको वो हेल्प करेंगे कि नहीं. सो ये हमारा फोकस होना चाहिए. मतलब एक इस तरीके से वी कैन टैकल दिस चैलेंज. एंड इसके अलावा ऑस्ट्रेलियन गवर्नमेंट, दे हैव रिसेंटली रिव्यूड द फंक्शनिंग ऑफ द रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड उन्होंने एक रिपोर्ट भी इशू करी है. सो उन्होंने 3 ऑब्जेक्टिव्स लिस्ट किए हैं: स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ द करेंसी, मेंटेनेंस ऑफ फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड इकोनॉमिक प्रोस्पेरिटी एंड वेलफेयर ऑफ द पीपल. सो ये 3 मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्लियरली उन्होंने मेंशन किए हैं. सो बेसिकली यहाँ पे पीरियोडिक रिव्यूज की बात की जा रही है कि इट कैन हेल्प. And apart from these objectives, review says the central bank must have a governance board for more accountability and a monetary policy board for more transparency. And you need to like appoint a chief operating officer to coordinate the functions across the central bank. So ये भी बाकी चीजें mention की गई है in their report. कि एक प्रॉपर लाइक गवर्नेंस बोर्ड होना चाहिए ताकि सेंट्रल बैंक की भी अकाउंटेबिलिटी बनी रहे. मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी बोर्ड होना चाहिए सो दैट देयर इज ट्रांसपेरेंसी. So like these things are also applicable to even Reserve Bank of India also. And अगर हम बात करें जब आरबीआई बनाया गया 1934 में, तो बेसिकली 3 ऑब्जेक्टिव्स लिस्ट किए गए. फर्स्ट वाज रेगुलेटिंग द बैंक नोट्स, then securing monetary stability, thirdly operating the currency and credit system to its advantage. 2016 में then RBI ने adopt किया inflation targeting would also be there one of the objectives. And बाकी जो 2 major objectives थे they were also added, which included maintaining the price stability while keeping mind मतलब while keeping in mind growth. तो ये नहीं कि अगर आप price stability पे focus कर रहे हो तो you'll forget about growth. नहीं, दोनों चीजें साथ में आपको लेके चलनी पड़ेंगी. While all these objectives they are important and they are repetitive and they're not clear. So for instance, like monetary stability, it includes everything. Monetary stability की आप बात करोगे तो उसमें क्या क्या आना चाहिए आपके माइंड में, like price, credit, currency. So should regulating the bank notes, क्या वो आज के टाइम में आरबीआई के लिए core objective होना चाहिए? Then like when we are in a digital world, we are seeing there is digitalization so much. So how should central bank interpret the growth? So growth को भी आप कैसे interpret करोगे? वो interpretations भी with time, with changing economic situation वो भी reshape होती जाएंगी. So preamble of RBI does not specify financial stability, but basically RBI regulates the banks and other financial institutions. And there are like 2 other issues also, like there are other issues as well, like inflation target of 4% with a tolerance band of 2 to 6%. However, जो market है, it interprets targeted inflation to be the upper end of the tolerance band, that is 6%. So market का interpretation अलग है. RBI बोलता है कि inflation targeting, जब आप inflation target की बात कर रहे हो तो वो 4% होना चाहिए, but market का interpretation ये है कि 6% तक अगर है तो they are in a like okay position. So inflation in India, it is mainly supply driven, whereas जो monetary policy है, it can mainly dampen the demand side inflation. ऑलराइट, सो ये क्लैरिटी होना बहुत ही ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. मतलब इंडिया में जो इन्फ्लेशन हम देखी गई है, पहले भी देखी गई है, आज के टाइम में भी सप्लाई साइड ड्रिवन इन्फ्लेशन देखी गई है. बट मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी जो स्टेप्स ली जाती हैं, रेपो रेट हाइक किया जाता है, टाइट मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी फॉलो की जाती है, दैट इज डिमांड साइड इन्फ्लेशन को टैकल करने के लिए. So there are governance issues as well, like role and tenure of RBI's central board. Central board, it is presided, like it presided over demonetization also, which had implications for the monetary policy and the purview of MPC. And RBI की जो recent currency and finance report है, it has discussed the challenges which are posted by even the climate change. So you need to understand कि how things are interrelated. आप सोचोगे कि climate change and RBI दोनों का कोई linkage ही नहीं है. But even this is discussed in their currency and finance report. So RBI, it constitutes committees to review its objective. And last time जब RBI ने एक committee बनाई थी, it was in 2013. तो मतलब periodically ये committees नहीं formulate की जा रही. So this needs to be ensured. And given the multiple changes since then, we are seeing it is time for the government to constitute a committee to review and make RBI fit for the future. So government should also conduct these reviews periodically, and this could be done easily as the RBI Act of 1935 has legislated the government to review the inflation targeting every 5 years. So this is even a part of the RBI Act. So this was a really important article for us today. Now we'll take up Indian Express newspaper. So let's see what are the new things here in this newspaper. So इससे रिगार्डिंग हम बात कर चुके हैं द हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर, so इसको हम फिर से डिस्कस नहीं करेंगे. So we are seeing कि WhatsApp पे we are seeing missed calls जो हैं ऐसे incidences increase हो रहे हैं, and this is like even happened with me also. But जो fake numbers हैं, जो international numbers से आपको calls आते हैं, please don't pick them up. And we are seeing this is a shadowy site से we are getting calls. So they're basically exploiting the gap. So despite WhatsApp coming up with a string of new features, scammers, they usually exploit the other loopholes which are still there. Like WhatsApp, it allows the users to create accounts using virtual phone numbers, which is a function that makes it difficult to trace those, like, जो actually were the people behind those accounts. So since आप like virtual phone numbers create कर सकते हो through WhatsApp and then you can make calls, so आपकी जो actual identity है वो नहीं determine की जा सकती है. So coming to the editorial section, one nation, many governments, Supreme Court's Delhi verdict carries promise of constitutional renaissance. So हमने मतलब कल इसको properly discuss किया, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की judgment रही हमारे लिए वो ज्यादा important. And again, this is a reiteration of the same thing. So we'll skip this article. The common ground. So it is talking about the strategic convergence between India and US that is growing. And an even more ambitious agenda awaits Indian Prime Minister in Washington. So यहाँ पे, this is one side of the picture. Here we're just talking about restricting ourselves to the India-US relations. So जो पूरी proper geopolitics है, how dynamics they are reshaping because of the Russia-Ukraine war, हमारे लिए वो ज़्यादा important है. And इस topic को हम already discuss कर चुके हैं कि जब हम बात करते हैं रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर एंड हाउ इंडियाज स्टैंड हैज बीन रिगार्डिंग इट, लाइक वी आर नॉट वेरी क्लियरली, वी हैव नॉट स्पोकन अबाउट व्हाट इज इंडिया स्टैंड, क्योंकि हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं, वी आर ट्राइंग टू बैलेंस बिटवीन द यूएसए एंड रशिया, क्योंकि रशिया भी हमारे लिए important partner है when it comes to defense supplies, and US is also an important partner. And then again, how Europe it has changing. We are seeing कि Finland it has joined NATO. तो जो main reason था behind this war, still we are seeing कि NATO की जो membership है that is increasing, it is growing much more closer towards Russian borders. And then there is also one more new element that has been added is the Arctic region. So Arctic region, maybe militarization is a concern. So coming to the explained page, यहाँ पे पाकिस्तान की जो पॉलिटिकल क्राइसिस है, इमरान्स बैटल विद द आर्मी चीफ मुनीर, क्या चल रहा है वो मेंशन है. सो ठीक है, इतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है हमारे लिए. सो कार्बन डेटिंग क्या होती है, एंड लाइक इट इज अलाउड बाय द हाई कोर्ट ऑन शिवलिंग फाउंड इन द काशी. So Gyanvapi Mosque stands close to the Kashi Vishwanath temple. Here you can see the picture. So Allahabad High Court ने order किया है कि एक scientific survey जिसमें carbon dating of the structure that was discovered in the Kashi Vishwanath temple Gyanvapi Mosque complex वाराणसी में किया जाना चाहिए. And हिंदू साइड का कहना यह है कि इट वाज एन एंशिएंट शिवलिंग एंड मुस्लिम साइड सेड दैट इट वाज अ फाउंटेन. तो इससे रिगार्डिंग इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट ने बोला है कि कार्बन डेटिंग करके पता लगाओ व्हाट इज द एक्चुअल थिंग. एंड हिंदू पिटिशनर्स क्लेम कि ज्ञानवापी मॉस्क जो है वो एक बनाया गया है ऑन एन एंशिएंट हिंदू टेम्पल. सो उसके नीचे एक हिंदू टेम्पल होना चाहिए या उसके ऊपर वो बनाया गया है. एंड जो पर्पेटेड शिवलिंग की बात की जा रही है, इट इज बीइंग साइटेड एज एविडेंस ऑफ द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ द टेम्पल. सो ये हिंदू पिटिशनर्स का क्लेम है. सो कार्बन डेटिंग क्या होता है? इट इज अ वाइडली यूज्ड मेथड टू एस्टैब्लिश द एज ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल्स, थिंग्स दैट वर वंस लिविंग. तो उनकी एज को पता लगाने के लिए कार्बन डेटिंग की जाती है, बट ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल्स के इट इज बीइंग यूज्ड. सो लिविंग थिंग्स दे हैव कार्बन इन देम इन वेरियस फॉर्म्स. So that is what is like the name is also their carbon dating. So dating method is based on the fact कि carbon 14 जैसे C14 is an isotope of carbon with an atomic mass of 14. It is radioactive and it decays at a well-known rate as well. So carbon 14 reduces to one half of itself in about 5,730 years, which is known its half life. So itne saalon mein it is like almost half of what it was earlier. And this is like through this we get to know ki actual age kya hai of something that we discover. So changing rate of carbon 12 to carbon 14 in the remains of plant or animal after it dies, it can be measured and it can be used to deduce ki kya approximate time tha when the organism died. सो यहाँ पे तो हम जो शिवलिंग फाउंड की गई है उसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं कि उसकी कार्बन डेटिंग की जानी है. तो यहाँ पे तो हमने बात करी कि ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल्स के लिए कार्बन डेटिंग यूज की जाती है. तो अब देखते हैं कि नॉन लिविंग थिंग्स के लिए हाउ इट इज रिलेटेड. सो कार्बन डेटिंग इट कैन नॉट बी यूज्ड टू डिटरमाइन द एज ऑफ नॉन लिविंग थिंग्स लाइक रॉक्स, बट देर आर अदर मेथड्स ऑल्सो to calculate the age of inanimate things, which is non-living things, many of which are based on the same principle as carbon dating. So principle वही रहता है जो carbon dating में use किया जाता है. So instead of carbon decay of other radioactive elements that might be present in the material, that becomes the basis for dating method. So जो organic material है उसमें आप carbon dating use करते हो, आप carbon element के basis पे करते हो, and जो non-living things हैं जो भी उसमें like element है अब उसके बेसिस पे यू डू द डेटिंग. सो मतलब जो मेन प्रिंसिपल्स है वो सेम है जो कार्बन डेटिंग में यूज किया जाता है. सो टू कॉमनली एम्प्लॉयड मेथड्स फॉर डेटिंग द रॉक्स इज पोटेशियम आर्गन डेटिंग एंड द यूरेनियम थोरियम लेड डेटिंग. सो ये दो मेथड्स हैं फॉर द नॉन लिविंग थिंग्स. सो अगेन इन्फ्लेशन के बारे में हम बात कर चुके हैं. तो रिटेल इन्फ्लेशन विद इन आरबीआई कंफर्ट बैंड फॉर द सेकेंड मंथ एंड factory output growth that has slipped to 5-month low. So confident that growth will be close to 6.5% according to the RBI governor in the current financial year. So G7 there was a debate regarding there is like increased reliance on China. So this was one of the agenda that was discussed. So group of 7 finance ministers and central bank governors, they were invited and their counterparts from the non-G7 countries in Niigata, Japan. So finance leaders of the G7 economies उन्होंने discuss किया कि there's a need to make global supply chains more resilient by reducing over reliance on China. So supply chains को और ज़्यादा resilient बनाने पे focus करना चाहिए अगर हमें China के ऊपर अपनी over reliance को कम करना है. So G7, it is likely to agree on a partnership to beef up the supply chains. They are not on the same page on how far they should go in countering China. So hanging over the meat, it was a lack of progress in resolving a US debt ceiling stalemate. So ये हम द हिंदू में भी मतलब बात कर चुके हैं. कल भी हमने इससे रिगार्डिंग बात करी थी. लिबोर की हम बात कर चुके हैं. So why लिबोर it is being phased out? So once it was a key benchmark for setting the interest rates on adjustable rate loans, mortgage and corporate debt, LIBOR is being phased out because of its role in worsening the 2008 financial crisis. So जब 2008 financial crisis हुआ तो उस time पे we got to understand कि because of जो उसने रोल प्ले किया एंड उस टाइम पे जो क्राइसिस थी उसको और वर्सन किया बिकॉज ऑफ लिबोर. एंड we saw कि there were scandals involving the manipulation by rate setting banks. So मतलब things were manipulated and उस टाइम पे we got to know कि लिबोर इतना reliable नहीं है. So that is the reason why we are phasing it out. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and do like this video and hit the subscription button for the channel. Thank you so much.